and welcome to the Above the Curve Legacy Metagame Breakdown. I'm Andrew Strout. I'm joined by Brad Nelson and Todd Anderson.
It hasn't changed since last time.
No, sure hasn't. Both of these guys still battling it out in the Invitational.
Yep.
I'm going to throw them a bone this time. I'm going to assume that both of you guys are sitting at 5-0.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, self-deprecating humor aside, I'm crushing this tournament, and I'm going to win all my legacy rounds.
All right. Strong words. Let's get to the decks. The first deck we're going to talk about, Delver of Secrets. Of course, that's not one deck. That's several decks. There's several flavors. Todd, tell us about Delver.
Take a deep breath. Okay, so Delver of Secrets is one of the more common strategies in Legacy, and if you're not a a huge fan of Legacy, or if you don't watch it all that much, you wouldn't really know all that much about this deck because there are 20 of them. So I think it is one of the more powerful strategies in Legacy because of its cheap disruption, its cheap threats, as well as its cheap card selection. Cards like Brainstorm and Ponder go really well in this strategy because they help you to consistently turn your Delver of Secrets into an Insectile Aberration as opposed to a Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. It uses things like Wasteland, Daze, Force of Will to disrupt the opponent for cheap or even for free, while continuing the beatdowns with its small army of creatures. I would expect this deck to be on camera almost every round, if not every round, simply because there are so many different flavors of the deck, and people can really just pick and choose which one that they want to play, and it's a very popular strategy. People like to cast Brainstorm, people really like to cast Delver of Secrets, and people really like to wasteland their opponents out of the game. Now, the variation that you're most likely to see, I think, is going to be blue, red, white Delver, simply because Stoneforge Mystic is a very powerful tool that the deck has access to. It also has won an open pretty recently in the hands of Michael Majors, as well as he got second, I think, in the tournament that he played before that at the Legacy Open a while back. I don't know exactly when.
Was it Atlanta?
Time is hard. Yeah, in Atlanta. So Delver of Secrets going to be all over the place. Get ready to watch it flip, or not, and then they'll lose. But yeah.
All right. So from one of the fastest decks in the format to one of the slowest. Brad, tell us a little about Miracles.
Miracles is probably the best deck in the format, except for the fact that it's the slowest. And a lot of players, choose not to take it to tournaments because of how long it takes to actually win a game. Not because it takes so many turns, but because so many decisions. Every turn you're activating Sensei's Divining Top, shuffling, trying to think out all of your turns. And the deck takes a long time to win because of those decisions, but that doesn't mean it's not the most powerful deck in the format. And the reason for that is because it has the best answer to the other aggressive decks like Delver. Lots of basic lands, Force of Will, and Terminus all provide a really good foundation to get to the long game against them, including the unbeatable Counterbalance Top Lock that is good against almost every deck in the format because the format is so controlled by Delver variants and the tempo of it that they are just playing a lot of 1 and 2 drops to get around cards like Daze and Spell Pierce and Wasteland. So because of that, Counterbalance Top is extremely powerful, Terminus kills everything, and Entreat the Angels is kind of a cool card. Just being able to just make a bunch of angels at any time in the game, even at end of turn because of Sensei's Divining Top, and able to just like put the opponent on the back foot immediately. I think that Miracles is going to be played by some of the strongest players in the tournament, and I expect those players to do well because of the Legacy rounds. Now, they'll probably fall apart in Standard, but most of the best Legacy players will be playing Miracles because it is just the most powerful deck in the format.
Okay, fair. The next deck we're going to talk about is a combo deck that has gained a lot of traction recently. Riley Curran took down a Legacy Open with it 2 weeks ago. Last week, we saw Ross Merriam make it all the way to the finals with it. The deck I'm talking about, Combo Elves. Todd, tell us a little about Elves.
So Elves is a very strange deck, and if you look at it on paper, it doesn't really look like it would be all that powerful. It's a bunch of 1-drop creatures, a little bit of card advantage here and there, and ultimately just kind of kills people with natural order. Now, before
can I? Sorry to interrupt you, but what does it usually search up with?
I'm sorry, is this your segment? Would you
No.
like to take the segment?
But
from
what
me?
card do they get with natural order?
Children, behave.
Yeah. So the deck was primarily a combo-based deck, with Glimpse of Nature being the premier engine. for a very long time, and it used cards like Regal Force to draw a bunch of cards on top of that, and really just combo killed people with something at the end of the game. Sometimes it was Emrakul, sometimes it was Grape Shot, and long ago it was Predatory Dragon, but it's come a long way since then.
That's been a minute.
Now the elf decks have transitioned to be a lot more explosive in the earlier turns of the game and rely much less on the card Glimpse of Nature. And they do this by casting Natural Order into Crater of Behemoth to deal an absurd amount of damage in a very short period of time. The Natural Order really changed how the deck operated in a number of matchups, including Miracles, which we talked about earlier, since the Miracles decks have so few 4-drops in their deck for Counterbalance to flip and counter the Natural Order. They have to have a Force of Will or an actual counter spell to stop it, which makes Natural Order into just Progenitus out of the sideboard or Crater of Behemoth into just an unreal monster. The deck has another engine in it with Elvish Visionary alongside Wirewood Symbiote to just continually gain card advantage against decks that are trying to use removal spells to 1-for-1 them to death. So it attacks on a lot of different axes that people can't really handle all of them. I would say that Elf combo, if the pilot is proficient, will go a long way in this tournament, though I would not bet on it to actually 8-0, I guess. I was going to say win the tournament, but it's not a Legacy top 8. But I would say it may put 1 or 2 people into the top 8 on the back of a very high winning record in the Legacy portion.
Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier that Combo Elves finished second last week in Providence. Let's next talk about the deck that actually won. Brad, what's going on with Death and Taxes?
All right, well, I'm going to tell you a story about some European Magic players from a year ago that ended up coming to America.
Yeah. Just like Eddie Murphy.
Just like Eddie Murphy, except they did not. They were not kings, and they didn't have a bunch of money. Anyway, Thomas Enevolson and Michael Bonde, both very good Legacy players that played Death in Texas, ended up coming to the Americas for 4 weeks of tournaments, and they came with a couple friends and had a blast. They even came here to Roanoke and hung out with us, which was awesome. But what they did while they were here was showed how powerful Death in Texas actually is. Now, a lot of American Magic players have followed coverage of Grand Prix and other Legacy tournaments over in Europe, and a lot of Death in Texas did well, but they never actually just got destroyed by the deck, so they never wanted to transition over to it. Think of Dave Schills. Thomas Enevolson destroyed Dave Schills in the in a invitational last year, so much so that Dave just picked up the deck and started learning how to play it, and now eventually a lot of these players have been getting to see the hype of Death in Texas and really see how powerful it is, and that we're starting to see the players get good enough to dominate with this deck. It is a very difficult deck to pilot, but it's also a very difficult deck to play against because of a card called Aether Vial. The issue with Aether Vial is if your opponent ever has an Aether Vial on 3 and a Flicker Wisp in hand, it's almost impossible to just disrupt them. And card advantage doesn't really exist in the format. So when somebody tries to kill a creature and you protect it, that's huge. Along with cards like Mother Runes, Thalia, Rich and Important Wasteland, it's so disruptive against a lot of the other fair decks that I've actually seen Death in Texas dominate Jace, an active Jace, just dominate the board with end of turn trickery, equipment, just being able to disrupt mana, always being able to bounce creatures with Karakas, and that's not even it. The deck, just because it's a fair mono-white control-ish style deck, doesn't mean it's bad against combo. Cards like Thalia, Wasteland, some sideboard options, as well as Karakas to deal with all the Emrakuls that Sneak and Show are trying to play. Even Phyrexian Revoker is able to just disrupt decks just long enough. And the best thing about Phyrexian Revoker is it can hit a mana source. So cards like Lion's Eye Diamond actually can't be activated. I'm pretty sure that's correct, right?
Yeah, and yes. Lotus Petal as well. It cannot name a land, but it can name any non-land card. Yeah. And unlike Pithy Needle, it actually shuts down mana abilities from those cards.
Yeah, so you can just hit Deathrite Shamans or
Heritage Druids.
Well, you get Deathrite Shaman anyway with Pithy Needle, but yeah, Heritage Druids. A lot of those combo pieces make this deck extremely disrupting. And now, I don't actually know the name of it. It came out in the Conspiracy, but they even have an answer to True Name Nemesis, a good answer.
Council's Judgment?
Council's Judgment.
Council's Judgment.
That's what it's called, but I'm going to call it Oblation because that was the first.
I just want to point out there is no I in Oblation.
Is it Oblation? I don't remember.
It's just Oblation.
Okay, it's just Oblation.
Oblation.
I'm a little embarrassed, but not really, actually.
Yeah.
Oblation was actually the first card I ever opened. The first pack of Magic I've ever opened was Oblation.
Well, I feel like you should know the name of it then.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting a little bit sidetracked here. Death and Taxes, of course, its original selling point was that it had an insane matchup against Sneak and Show. It was kind of the big bad boogeyman of last year's Legacy metagame. And that's the last deck we're going to talk about here today. Todd, tell us a little about Sneak and Show.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I very much enjoyed putting Gristlebrand into play and drawing a bunch of cards. And that's exactly what the deck gets to do. What's so funny?
Well,
do you want to take my segment again?
I just want to say, I had a good joke. You were like, I don't know about you, and I'm like, but I want to deal 22.
Oh, God.
Gristlebrand and Emrakul.
Oh, wow. It all comes back to 22.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Taylor
It
Swift.
does add up, but...
All right, back to camera 3.
Yeah,
Let's go. All right,
Gristlebrand drawing 7, that's a real thing,
guys,
too.
come on.
Todd.
All right, so Sneak and Show is a very powerful proactive strategy that puts the onus of interacting with it on the opponent. If they don't have the right tools to interact with you, they're going to lose. And now that the deck is playing Jace the Mind Sculptor as a card advantage engine, you have more cards that are just must counters from any sort of blue-based opponent. But at the same time, you can fight through just about anything with the options that are given to you with these colors. I've been playing a lot with Sneak and Show over the past couple months. I've top-8'd multiple opens with it, losing in the quarterfinals both times, once to Delver and once to a Deathblade deck. But even Chris Van Meter picked up the deck. Lost in the quarterfinals to Delver last weekend, too. But I would say that the matchup against Delver is really close. And along the way, we both had to defeat multiple Delver opponents. So I would not look at it that way. I think it's more of a coin flip matchup, if anything. I think that Sneak and Show is very well positioned right now, and you're going to see a little bit of it on camera, but it hasn't really gained a lot of popularity lately. And the fact that it hasn't won tournaments means you're going to see less of it than you're going to see like Elf Combo or Miracles or various other decks. So.
I do remember it winning a tournament. I do remember it specifically it winning an invitational, actually.
Okay.
I said recently.
Yeah,
that was reason enough for me.
That was almost a year ago
That
now?
was 8 months ago.
Oh, fine. All right. Brad Nelson won an invitational 8
Wow.
months ago, guys. Just a heads up.
He had a goat token.
Yeah. This is the GOAT. The GOAT. Look on him right now.
Bah. That's a sheep, isn't it?
It's not the end of the show yet. You can't say bah.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
it's the end. It's not the end of the broadcast, but it is the end of our segment. So stick around. We've got plenty more coverage coming of the Star City Games Open Series featuring the Invitational here in Columbus.
All right, now.
Hopefully we played better.
Now.
than we
Do it
thought.
now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.